We already have a ready layout. Again, we must prepare the fields which we want to process. We extract the button, the checkbox, and the text field in order to get the data to the field and the checkbox after the button is clicked. For the time being, we won't save data to the base because we don't have it yet. So, we'll return the data to the activity from which it was executed, the activity list. Now, we go to the new activity and extract particular fields by transforming them into class fields. Next, we add the on-click listener. This time we have one button. So let's use a simpler version, that is, the anonymous method. We obtain the data in the on-click method. We also set a flag which marks whether the task has been finished. We want to pass both pieces of information to the activity which it was called from. First, however, we have to correctly start the activity. To do so, we use the mechanism named Start Activity for Result. It's a slightly different method of calling an activity, which consists in that the activity is started, but we assume that the moment it is finished, the control will be returned to our activity, and the onActivityResult method will be called, which checks the result returned by the activity. We'll use this method and check what it looks like in practice. We have to introduce a small change to our activity list. The moment we started the adding activity, we used to call it using Start Activity. Now we must change it to Start Activity for Result. The difference is that, apart from the intent, at least the start code is passed. Request code is an integer which allows us to distinguish the next call, because we can start several other activities from a single activity. We must have the possibility to find out which activity we've managed to return from. In our case, the activities of adding and editing should have different request codes, because a return from these activities will be distinguished with the use of a request code. In our case, we choose a constant which may have any value. Let's use the number 123. Taking advantage of the fact that Android Studio has good refactoring, that is, code modification methods, we transform the number into a constant. The constant name is proposed based on the variable name. At this moment, our activity is started with the right request code. the activity is started exactly the same way. But after the return, a special method is called, which is implemented in the activity. This is the onActivityResult method. We have to overwrite it. In this method, we can check whether the activity which we returned from is the activity we're interested in. We check whether the request code returned as one of the parameters complies with the request code used to start the activity. If that's the case, we assume that we've returned from the activity we're interested in. Another thing is to check which result code has been returned. The basic available codes include result OK, result cancelled, and result first user. Result OK has the value of -1, result cancelled has the value of 0, and result first user has the value of 1. Result codes OK and cancelled are pretty straightforward. If we returned from activity and didn't perform the assumed action, as a default, the cancelled value is returned. If we return the OK code, we assume that the action we wanted to perform was executed. Additionally, we have the possibility to use the first user code in order to create our own result code. We can have several own codes, which, depending on how we program them, can mean error codes or correct execution codes. The result code first user is the first value we'll use. It's usually the case that if we define our own codes, we do it on the principle of result first user plus 1, result first user plus 2, and so on. In our case, we'll use the default value result code, that is, OK. If we manage to perform a certain action, we'll get the data which we want to display. Otherwise, we can display a message, for instance, using the toast mechanism. In a moment, we'll deal with the OK code. We need to download data to be saved in the activity. For now, let's assume that in this section we'll also display a toast. We start our application. After starting the activity and clicking the plus button, we return using the back button. In such a case, we get result cancelled. This is because we haven't specified the result of the activity which adds the task. Due to this, the default result is returned, meaning it is cancelled. In order to change this result, we have to, in a certain place in our activity, define the result as result OK. We can do this in the listener by calling the setResult method. At the same time, we can determine that our activity will be finished. If we don't do this, the to-do activity won't close after the Add button is pressed. Result OK will display only after pressing the Back button. Set Result only sets the result at the exit, but it does not cause the exit itself. That's why we'll have to add the Finish method.